one thing I could say from what I saw, at least over Sunday, there were a lot of individuals who came out on their own. Most people who were gun carriers, card holders, who came out just to protect the buildings.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. I was walking up Phillips at night after we got done with the service over at the Ransom Church. Thank you for inviting me, Pastor Jason. It was awesome. But it was one of those where it was like, I was happy, enthralled. I was, it was something that was encouraging. I only saw 2 like private security guys walking around, and they were interacting with the other guys, and it was like, that is how a community.
I was very impressed with the Sioux Falls and how the Sioux. So this is really hard for me to say because I tend to be kind of anti-police in general. I'm not a fan of them. The system itself is not a healthy system, but I was very impressed with how Sioux Falls handled things Sunday night.
So this is a perfect segue because this is kind of something I want to bring up.
Yeah.
When you're talking about training for police officers, and the thing that just keeps coming to my mind that I was really happy to see wasn't as big of an issue as I was afraid it would be, was how much of that training is just do what you're told even if you know it's morally wrong. You know, I mean, in the military, you're basically programmed, do what your commanding officer says. It is a safety hazard if you don't. You just...
Unless you're like me and you mouth off at your sergeant because you didn't believe what he had to say. I didn't,
Carl was special. But,
that's why we love
that was a huge concern for me, especially as somebody who watched, like, you know, The Handmaid's Tale. You see the beginning of how that story starts with all the, you know, people just doing what they're told even when they don't know what or why or they don't think it's right. So I was really happy to see, I think this is a good transition into talking about how people responded to what happened in
Sioux Falls
and moving out of this police brutality.
Brilliantly.
Part of the discussion.
For the most part. Outside of the riot.
I know that in Sioux Falls there was peaceful protesting on Saturday and on Sunday. We received warnings from people in Fargo who also had wonderful peaceful protests. People hugging police officers and doing all these great things. That in the evening over there, they had a group that came to town who was there to rile things up. And they started burning things down and, you know, trying to start a problem. And they warned us that that group was coming to Sioux Falls for around 6:30 or so on Sunday after, like, at the end of our peaceful protest. And so that is what happened. This group came into town, and it got a little raucousy. And it's interesting because I watched the live feed of what was happening. I saw some of these people who had come into town getting up in the face of the police officers, trying to start something, antagonizing them, saying, push me, I dare you, like begging for it. So this got to a point where tear gas was deployed, rocks were being thrown at police officers. But I also did hear that there were some people who were like forming lines of defense for the officers and property.
It was one of the, and I'm probably going to cry because I've been crying all day ever since I saw that, but yeah, but no, I was really amazed. Like all of a sudden, when the rocks started being thrown at I think the first shot was there was a rock that was thrown at a police car that broke out a window, and all of a sudden, all of the peaceful protesters that were there were like, "No, this is a peaceful protest. What's going on?" And they literally formed a wall of people. And these people, they weren't black, they weren't white, they weren't whatever. I mean, in their minds, they were simply human beings protecting an innocent people from being hurt. In this particular situation, the innocent people happened to be cops that they were protecting. And it was just one of the most beautiful scenes of courage and integrity and love that I've seen in a long time. And I think it just speaks to the level of consciousness of Sioux Falls that could happen. But I think as a result of that, it allowed the cops to be more aware, because some of the problems that are happening in like Chicago and New York and other places is the cops are just treating everybody as if they're the enemy, which is not the case. And so what happened in Sioux Falls, as a result of how things went down, the cops were able to differentiate. They were able to realize, oh, there's vigilantes out here that are protecting people, protecting the city, protecting individuals. There's citizens out here protecting things. There's normal, peaceful protesters that don't want violence. And then there's the crazies that just want to do destruction and break stuff up. Yeah. And I think because of that awareness, you know, the local police here in Sioux Falls, they showed great discernment and wisdom in how they dealt with things. And I have a friend, her name's Jessie May, and she's a true warrior. She was actually out in the middle of this, and she was, if you can imagine this like little tiny, I don't know, 5 foot, I don't know how tall
like my
she
mom.
is. But you know, she's younger than me, and she's like, she was on Facebook Live, and when the punks were kind of walking through, she's like, you're on camera, you know. It's like, hey, if you vandalize that car, we're gonna have problems, you know. And, it was just you know, and there was just you know, and so what happened was, you know, because we had all of these private individuals, whether they were, you know, motorcycle groups or hunters or veterans or whatever, we had all these private individuals with guns. That's why we have guns, by the way, to protect ourselves from crazy people.
Okay, let's not get into that one. Save it for another day.
But you know, the cops were actually working with the vigilantes and the private people just defending themselves to some degree, and they were able to single out and like only go after the actual people that were causing the problem. And that was amazing. And to me, we were talking about that stratification between the police and the mundane, so to speak. Spiritually, that did not exist during that time of crisis. Like, it was like we were all kind of one, you know, people working to save our city. And you know, there were people, reports of these vandals that were filling up gas cans, and they were gonna like throw them and like light them on fire. Wow. We were able to prevent any of those fires from happening. It was just, I don't know, I just really proud to live in this city, I guess. And
beyond this city, I just have to say, it warmed my heart to see the situations where there were police officers in other cities who took a knee with people, who took off their gear and joined the protest and said, I'm on your side, I'm with you. Because in my mind, like, I'm a real peace is the winner thing. So, in my mind, you're not going to win the apocalypse, you know, like the big final showdown war. You're not going to win it because you had the strongest firepower. That's just going to kill everybody. You're going to win it when all the people who were told they had to pick up their guns put them down and decide not to fight. And so that, to me, that was something I really needed to see.
It's going out to you, National Guard. It's going out to you.
On that note, Nicolette, on the National Guard, Nicolette actually makes a comment. The unfortunate thing about the military is that you have to follow orders or you get reprimanded.
Yep. 2 Article 15s. That's me.
Yeah.
2. I even went to Thunder Road. Had to go back to boot camp after going to boot camp. And then,
I can just picture how much you'd mouth off. Like,
but that's...
And maybe that's one reason why they don't want free thinkers that are able to think for themselves in the police departments.
And give you a quick rundown on that. So the 2 that I got, one happened because I was told to do something. I was a weapons specialist with F-16s. I was told to do something that another individual told me not to do, or said that was not supposed to happen. My sergeant at the time was saying, no, this is what we got to do. I'm like, look, this dude told us that wasn't what we were supposed to do. I'm going to talk to him. It was one of those, like, I was an airman, he was a 5-stripe sergeant, and that was a no-no. But I was very adamant about going and asking a second opinion. It's not what they like. You can't have, you know, nice little sideburns, because everybody gotta look like little boxes made of ticky-tacky.
You gotta look like the G.I. Joes that they're using on the strategy board, and then not do anything different than they did when they moved the strategy board around.
But that has been the underlying problem with the military is that it is follow orders without question.
And that is why it makes me very, very uncomfortable when I hear Trump threaten martial law if the riots don't quell.
Yeah,
that makes me crazy uncomfortable.
Talking about when the looting starts, the shooting starts. I'm sorry, but that's just
asking to escalate things.
That's
We want to
non-compassionate, discompassionate, lack of empathy. That is, I have some words, but I'll show not to curse, so I'm holding it. But like, man,
looting doesn't help the cause.
No.
Rioting, advancing it beyond peaceful. And let me tell you, I saw some amazing peaceful protests. I want to call out 16-year-old Olivia Moore. I don't know if you saw what was going around, but she, people started just joining her as she was out there, and they had a 9-minute thing where they laid out in the street and basically reenacted what happened to him. A street full of people, laying with their hands behind their backs. A lot of them had face masks on, and crying out for their mother, and that is a powerful, peaceful protest.
I got chills from that.
I know, right?
Man.
The pictures just made me cry.
Like vigils might be a more powerful way to get a person's point across than
but I just don't understand how stealing Nikes and clothing from Target is. I don't know if they sell
that's
Nikes,
another issue.
Is
it's
saying anything for your cause.
It's being opportunistic in a certain. It's like the LA riots, or here's an example. You had the LA riots that happened where just cause for the same concept, right? You had the beating of Rodney King, and you had the riots that ensued from that. Because before that, you had decades of just misconduct from. But then you had New York, who had a blackout, and one of the citywide blackout, and they were able to contain themselves in a way that was relatively peaceful. That wasn't crazy. That wasn't people going out of the way out of opportunity. Though it wasn't based off of somebody's death or the misconduct of another officer on a civilian, it still shows that we have the capacity.
Right.
But it's when it comes to the aggression, when it comes to anger, as an individual of color, we have this aggression, this anger, this frustration that we have no idea how to get out.